Testing 1, 2, 3. This will be the April 18th, 2018 City Council regular meeting.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order a regular City Council meeting in the City of Satellite Beach, April 18th, 2018, approximately 7 p.m. Please join Vice Mayor Montanaro for a prayer and the pledge.
Lord, thank you for allowing us to be here this evening. Please be with us as we make decisions for our community. Protect our armed forces all over the world, and thank you for the blessings that you've bestowed on us living here in Satellite Beach. Please be with our first responders in Satellite Beach and nationally. In your name we pray, amen.
With allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 3, citizens' comment for non-agenda items. Non-agenda items. Hearing none. Well, the citizens' comment moves on to city council comments. With council's permission, I'd like to start. One thing I'd like to task the city manager to staff to give us a report on the phone system. From the standpoint, come back if this one's not going to work, where it fits in our budget.
Yeah.
With permission, okay, from council
Yes.
on that? That way at least we get it
It
going.
went down again.
Yeah.
And
So-
frustrating for people.
It is. So if we could look at that,
Yeah.
we'd be supportive.
Okay.
Thank you. Minnie?
Nothing, just we have the Relay for Life on Saturday, and I will be in the dunk tank at 1:30 p.m., so anybody that would like to use their arms and
Don't let the fire department fill up the
feel,
dunk tank.
feel free to, don't, okay.
Don't do it.
With cold water. Okay, so anyway, that's all I gotta say. So feel free to come and dunk me. And then we have the Mayor's Fitness Challenge field day going on as well. All sorts of activities for the kids and the families, and I think it'll be a pretty good day. And we're raising money for something that I'm sure we've all been touched by at some point in time in our life. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Don?
I attended the Space Coast League of Cities meeting where Dwayne DeFries gave an update on what's going on with the Indian River Lagoon, and it was pretty enlightening to hear what's actually been happening, the plans that are going on. If you're not tuned into what's been happening, they're looking at different projects that they're moving into. Most of the last year and a half has been setting up the direction that they're looking at moving in, and now the direction is there, and they're starting to look at particular projects. So it was really good to listen to that. Saturday, I went to the Keep Brevard Beautiful cleanup at Pelican Beach Park that Ethan and his mom, Kathy Shota, have been doing now for several years, and Ethan took that over as a 9-year-old, and he's 13 now, and he's still doing it. So it's great that we have young adults in our community to do that stuff. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Just a couple things, right? Last week, we had the South Beaches Coalition meeting, and also I attended the Space Coast TPO. Had a few presentations that were pretty interesting. One talking about the port and all the new things that the port has planned in their coming years out there, and some of the stuff about the bridge, the Nassau Causeway Bridge, and I guess that's like on a fast track to try to get that pushed through. A couple of the other local roads and stuff improved, so it was a pretty interesting meeting. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any further council comments? All right, thank you, council. Moving on to city attorney's report, Jim.
The only item that I have is, and I'm sure that most of the council, if not all the council, is aware that the governor signed the bill that regarding the Sandy Beach customary use. The city manager and I have talked about it, and we've started communications with the county. I'm sure that some of you read the paper with Mike McGarry's position regarding the easements. What we're looking for from council is that we'd like to continue to investigate the issue regarding what the county's position is and see if there's any other options available before we proceed under the statute. Because obviously that's like the nuclear option, so to speak, and we'd rather not go there to begin with. We'd rather just see if we can find some other ways to address it. And we're just looking for direction from council, because I know the general position of council has been that they want to do whatever they can to deal with that issue, but we'd rather see if there's other ways to deal with it other than to go directly to the statute.
My feeling is, please pursue, come back, and what the report does. I mean, I'd like to do whatever the most peaceful way is we can handle this. I mean,
I agree.
I don't know what everybody else is, but is that direction?
There's
everybody
time
agree?
constraints that we are under if we're going to move in that direction. Don't we have time constraints on that?
There are when you start the process, but I don't remember there being time constraints in starting the process.
Okay.
Okay. Is that what you?
That's fine.
Great. Everybody okay with that?
Yes.
That's all I have.
Thank you. City Manager's report?
Thank you, Mayor. On Saturday, April 21st, from noon until 10 p.m., we have the South Beaches Relay for Life event at Satellite High School. And this event is actually being combined with our field day event. So like Mindy said, we're going to have quite a bit of activities for people to do there. I'm going to ask Nick to come up and talk about his event that he's got at the planting and Earth Day.
Good evening, Council. It's my pleasure to announce that we're having our first Satellite Beach Earth Day officially this year. And we'll be starting it off on Saturday on the 21st at 9 o'clock in the morning. We'll be planting over 8,000 plants as part of our DeSoto Bioswale Stormwater Enhancement Project. Plants were delivered today and they all looked really, really good. We just launched a video on Facebook, short little video trying to get people to come out. I would like to see everyone share the video, promote the event. Everyone that comes to the event will also be told about the Relay for Life event that they could then go to afterwards. And then on Sunday, we'll be having it at the DRS Center, the official Earth Day celebration, where we'll have vendors, educational information, educational booths, live music, and the Coastal Kitchen food truck as well to celebrate Earth Day. Hopefully we can do this every year, and we'll have the 50th anniversary of Earth Day in the next 2 years. So that'll be a lot of fun then. That's it, real simple. And all the proceeds from the event on the 22nd, Earth Day celebration, we're going to have a small Relay for Life tent where we'll do a pizza eating contest sponsored by Papagallo's, where all proceeds will go to Relay for Life. We plan to raise about $100 through that. So thank you very much.
Nick, first, thank you very much. I see how hard you're working out there.
I will give it up to Public Works too. Without them, I'd still be out there unloading plants.
Well, I tell you, great job.
Thank you so
Great job
much.
coordinating it, and I know it's going to turn out great for us.
I really, really hope so.
Thank you for you and the staff's hard work on it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Courtney?
Did you share it to the Sustainability Board Facebook site or the city manager? Okay, sorry, I'm just trying to.
Sustainability Board, Surfrider, Rethink Energy Brevard, we're trying to get as many cross promotions as we can. So if you know anybody who'd like to share the video, please pass it along.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you very much.
Courtney?
And then also we have our final citizen workshop for the climate change project with Stetson. That's on April 26th. So Dad would be presenting the findings of the study and then also the proposals. I will be out of town on April 21st through the 23rd. Unfortunately, I'm going to miss the Relay for Life event and Nick's event, but I need to keep my certification. A reminder that you need to complete my evaluation form by April 25th if possible. So get those in. Be kind. And our first Budget Advisory Committee meeting is scheduled for April 19th at 6 p.m. So that's tomorrow night.
The 26th climate change project, what time is that?
That's at 6.
6. Further questions for city manager? So there's no action items, so there's no votes or anything? Everybody good? Okay, thank you, Courtney. This time, we move on to agenda item 7, discuss take action on ordinance 1159. Jim?
Ordinance number 1159, an ordinance of the City of Satellite Beach, Brevard County, Florida, amending the coastal management/conservation element of the 1998 Comprehensive Plan as amended April 5th, 2017, based on the city's updated data and analysis of the Comprehensive Plan, revising and updating existing goals, objectives, and policies concerning properties within the city's Erosion Adaptation Action Area, EAAA, in accordance with the mandates set forth in Chapter 163 Florida statutes, authorizing transmittal of these amendments to the East Central Florida Regional Planning Council, State Land Planning Agency, and other applicable agencies for review and comment as required by Florida statutes, providing a conflicts clause and severability clause, and providing an effective date. It's the first reading of ordinance number 1159.
Thank you very much. Before we get going here, I have two letters of support, Deanna Clark and Sylvia Carante, that I will put into records here. Thank you. Staff?
As part of our overall work in trying to address climate change impacts, and erosion is one of those issues, we created a climate ambassador team, and we began looking at parts of our code that we needed to change to address all of these issues. And one of the, if you see a lot of the public outcry over the beach renourishment and things like that, a lot of the times the position of the buildings so close to the dunes is brought up over and over and over by the community. So we wanted to address that very real issue of permitting structures in an area that was clearly eroding. And so we have put together a proposal for you to consider for our comprehensive plan. The ordinance is still to come, so that's forthcoming, and that'll be scheduled for your for council meetings in the month of May. So I'm going to turn it over to Rochelle and let her go through that with you.
Thank you. Good evening, City Council, Mayor. Rochelle Lowendales, 335 Sherwood Avenue. I'm here really to answer any questions that you have. It's fairly self-explanatory what we're trying to do. Basically, it's retreat from our coastal area in order to protect and preserve both public and private investments. So what we've done is we have added a policy. Let me back up for a minute. Over the course of the last few years, you have amended your coastal management and conservation element to add adaptation action areas, and all of the sustainability action plans, the principles and practices report, so on and so forth, have talked about how to implement additional sustainability and climate change responsibility measures. And so what we've done is we've added a policy which is part of Exhibit A in your ordinance, 1.14.19, that will set forth the enabling legislation, basically, within the comp plan, after which we will follow that with Ordinance 1160. It has been through the Planning Advisory Board once, but we're taking it back. That's the commensurate ordinance for changing the land development regulations to implement this. That said, I believe the city manager has a handout that shows an example of what the current building envelope is and what the new building envelope would be under the implementing land development code. What we're trying to do is bring people, actually, I'm going to say it this way, we're going to really draw a line in the sand. And that line in the sand is going to be the 1981 Coastal Construction Control Line. We call it the CCCL. So that's when I use the acronym. So that really is going to become our line in the sand. Right now, you can go seaward of that line if your property is seaward of that line, and you can get a permit to do so. What we are trying to do is, from that line in the sand, bring it back. And so originally we had figured on about 5 feet from that, and we're trying to create a bigger envelope, recognizing that there's going to be the loss of some property use in the rear, which in this case is on the dune. So we're extending the setbacks in the front and reducing the setbacks on the side to what is required by the breezeway, and pulling back from our line in the sand. Originally, we talked about 5 feet. The city manager had subsequent conversations with the county staff, and the county's regulations are 15 feet from the CCCL, and so we thought that it would be advantageous for us to be consistent with them and also do the 15 feet from our new line in the sand. And so it'll be 15 feet on the rear, 5 feet in the front, and your breezeway requirements on the side. And that's depicted on the little graphic that I did for you. In conversations with the city manager today, we felt that maybe there was a little bit of potential gray area in the language. And so we are suggesting a language modification to policy 1.14.19 to add the language that's highlighted in yellow on the second page of the handout that you have. Natural disaster may have different meanings for different people. A natural disaster could be a lightning strike, a fire, something of that nature. When what we're really attempting to do is deal with dune issues and the loss of the dune bluff line from erosion, sea level rise, hurricanes, and those specific kinds of catastrophes. So we decided to take out the word natural disaster and add in the words sea level rise and or hurricanes. So it would read policy 1.14.19, development and redevelopment on oceanfront lots within the EAAA, which is the Erosion Adaptation Action Area, are vulnerable to erosion, sea level rise, and or hurricanes, and are therefore subject to the following development and redevelopment requirements as of the effective date of this policy. Number 1 stayed the same. Number 2, that language is substituted again for natural disaster, and number 3 stays the same as what you have in your packets. So we thought we'd eliminate some subjectivity of what actually constituted a natural disaster and make this modification. With that, we do have some maps available if the council or anyone needs to see them or wants to see them, and the building official and I are happy to answer any questions for you.
I just wanted to also clarify that we decided that we were going to go ahead and notice property owners for the zoning regulation ordinance that'll be coming through. So I want to make sure you're aware of that, so each property owner will get a letter and a copy of the ordinance in the mail. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I sat through those committee meetings, and so I'm real familiar with, they've worked pretty good, hard on this. Mm-hmm. So questions from the rest of the council, Mindy?
I do. Do we know how many homes will be impacted by this to a point of being completely unbuildable if, per se, a hurricane came and devastated that house? How many homes would be a complete loss and be unable to rebuild as a result of the changes? Do we have any that would be that way, or?
Yes, there would be.
Okay, and
I'm
sure I can think of a couple of them. I know
Yes.
right off the top of my head, but other than the obvious ones, are there any other ones?
Yeah, that map right there, which I have a smaller one here, I'll pass this down. It basically represents the 81 line relative to like a Google Earth, the oceanfront properties. I would say better than 50% of the structures are impacted by
Better than how many?
Better than 50% of the structures. The erosion's been pretty substantial on our shoreline. And while 1981 control line was a valid line in 1981, in 2018 it's been substantially impacted, and it is no longer relevant as a point to indicate everything that's at risk seaward. Now there's areas landward of that.
That are risk, yeah.
You know, I think this, oh, I'm
I
sorry.
just want to make sure, Mindy, do you have any other questions, Mindy, on it?
No, I didn't realize there was quite that many. Okay.
You know, I look at this and I think if the type of storm that you're talking about coming in that's going to take out those properties to that extent, if that happens, what you're proposing definitely allows people the ability to rebuild on that property after the event that takes out those homes. You know, I look at what happened in 1984 in South Carolina when Hurricane Hugo came through there. And there were properties on Pawleys Island that I had been going to for years that were built on slabs. And when Hugo came through, the state of South Carolina declared dead zones in certain areas. And if you were going to build back in certain areas, you had to go up. You had to be on pilings. If something to the extent of what you're talking about devastates homes along our beachfront to that extent, you know, we're giving people the ability to build back by moving them closer to the road. We are probably going to be, they can already go up to 65 feet on that side of A1A anyway. I think this is really forward thinking by the committee to even come up with this stuff, because this is the direction that Florida is going to have to start looking at. And it's not just Satellite Beach, it's the entire state of Florida. It's not just happening here, it's happening all over. So we're making really good decisions here to allow people to continue to occupy the property.
Well, I guess that counters my question, though, because did they not just say that 50% would be unbuildable? Is that what you just said?
I wouldn't call it unbuildable.
Let's clarify the unbuildable.
Okay, that's, I need clarity on that.
I believe what John is saying, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but what I'm saying is that you will be able to rebuild on your property.
Okay.
You may not be able to put back what you had exactly.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
So we're not saying that they're...
Not the same
And there may
footprint,
be, there may be a couple of homes that, because of the angle of the street, or because of
Yeah.
where they are situated on a particular lot, and I could probably think of a handful of those, no more than a handful of those, that may have great difficulty. But Councilman Montanaro said that, you know, about going up.
Right.
They have the ability to go up. So, no, they're not going to be able to rebuild where they were.
Right, that wasn't my question, though. My question
For
was,
exactly
by
the way it
changing the
was.
line,
And I
how
wanted
many properties will be unbuildable at all?
There will be some.
Yeah,
There will
I
be
know
some,
for
but I
sure.
think it's more of a handful.
Not 50%, though, right?
No.
Okay, that's when you said 50%, I thought, oh my
It's
God.
a
I
foot.
want to
I'm
clarify
not gonna
that.
do this.
I want to clarify that
No, I'm
before
just
this is a hellstorm.
Basically saying that that 81 line either touches or goes through the structure along our coastline of more than 50% of structures.
Okay.
So the one thing on it is, basically what this is, it's not that they can't use the property, it's the footprint is going to be changed.
Correct.
That's correct.
So we're just sliding the footprint, go up, so they can build the square footage. We're giving it to them on the side and the front instead of the back. So we're just
That's
moving, if you lose more than 50%, right, then the footprint's going to change to meet this code.
We've not tied a percentage to it at
Okay.
this point in time. We're still working on the language in the LDR.
Okay.
We have not tied a percentage to it, so I don't want that.
And it's hard to determine that
Yeah.
without engineering, you know, because there's some other issues with properties that sometimes impact where they can build on their lot, you know.
Okay.
And there are, we have a flood ordinance that, it was the model ordinance that actually the feds handed down to the state and the state handed down to us. And it clearly defines what substantial damage is. So while we haven't put it into the regulations yet, that'll become forth as 1160. You know, that 50% number, 50% damage, is probably a reasonable way to look at whether or not it would meet that requirement.
I also, we will have some property owners that even with because we did give a better envelope, honestly, with the newer code, it's a better envelope. But there are properties that won't be able to meet that because they can't even get it, even get it on with this envelope without impacting the CCCL. And in that instance, if you have a rebuild that is being rebuilt because it was compromised by erosion, and we turn around and issue the permit to rebuild in that exact location, that's on us. I mean, we know that there's a problem there, and we're giving permits out for people to rebuild in an area we know there's a problem. So I see a lot of problems with that, and that's one of the reasons why we have to look at this. Because, we're either going to have we will probably have some legal claims, but at the same time, we're going to have the same thing by allowing them to build in an area that shouldn't be built on to begin with.
Quick question on this. On the side setback, 0. But we have to leave enough for emergency vehicles, fire trucks.
There's all these other codes.
Right, again, I just want to make
And
sure
the
it's 0. Right.
The asterisk means that it's going to, the breezeways apply, and that's generally about
Okay.
40%.
It's a typical review of a permit, where you look at all the applicable codes and you layer them on, and the most restrictive is what gets applied.
And we wanted to, the reason why we have that, because we could put a setback in, but we wanted to have that because we're trying to give some flexibility here to avoid the dune, basically. So, if we can get, if somebody has a 3-foot setback on one side and, because that's the way their property is aligned, then, and we're able to let them build, and they're 15 foot from the dunes, I think that's fine. We need to be a little bit more flexible.
Our thinking is, the reality is Mother Nature is going to take it. So what we're trying to do is get in front of it and open up an envelope in front of that by retreating more landward, and try to do that without the need for variances that are no guarantees you're going to get them. And so this flexibility will allow you to build something further away from that control line that we know is a problem.
And to do it by right,
So we don't have to
to go through a process.
Yeah, one more.
Sorry. And this maybe isn't, it's just from my knowledge and understanding is, so if there is a structure that becomes more than 50% damage or whatever, and they can't rebuild, what typically happens to those people? I'm sure they get some sort of insurance for replacing the home, but then their land becomes unusable. Is this where we're looking at the potential lawsuits to cover the offset of that? And how does that work for us? Are we insured to cover those type of lawsuits if we have to pay them back for their land? What normally is?
We have insurance for litigation for civil land use issues. But that's, there's also the issue that, and I don't, we may not have a defense there, but if the property is unbuildable, it's unbuildable, so, if it's a highly eroding area and you're allowing them to build into the dunes, then,
Yeah, I agree. I just was
Let me
curious.
get that.
We would be looking.
we
I can
would,
think of a couple of
and then
properties
anybody
that
can
might-
file a claim,
As an example, we get the house behind Sun on the Beach on Shell Street.
What I'm thinking of,
That
yeah.
had a pool behind it, and now that control line is 2/3 of the way, almost in front of that property. There's nothing we can do about that. It's just Mother Nature, and it is where it is.
Yeah.
So if they come in, there's no room to build another structure
Right.
there.
Okay.
Thank you. Stephen? Nope. Let me open up for public and then come up
Okay.
first. Okay. At this time, open up for public comment on ordinance 1159.
Do you want that back?
No, I got it up.
Good evening, council. Ron Jagutis, Satellite Beach. Looking at this, I do have a question in regards to, all right, we'll deal with this later. Huh?
It looks like it might be connected at the base there. Okay.
That's better. Is it now being changed? Because I see all this documentation. For instance, if you're at the coastal construction line and you talk about the high bluff or the high dune area, what is in control at this point as far as what that line is? Which one is it?
The 1981 Coast Construction Control Line is a very definitive line, and it shows up on survey. That is the line that we're talking about, and that will take precedence over a more fluid line, which is the dune crest, which changes over time, and is usually
All right.
seaward of that 81
I understand, John. Thank you very much. The thing is now I see a proposed change. When I started reading through the documents, it says here, is it here? Said in one area that residential property would not have to meet certain issues here. One moment. So for residential properties, does it remain at 5 feet back of the coastal construction line, or is it now being changed to 15 feet?
15 feet.
It's now being changed.
So it's a 15-foot setback from the CCL in the rear, and then we're decreasing the front setback to 5 feet. So we're trying to move the structures closer to the street.
Anybody on the committees live on the beach? Anybody live directly on the beach? My answer is probably no.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Correct? We've ridden out storms, and you throw this at us after we're just settling for Hurricane Irma. We just had beach renourishment done. That hardened it a little bit, which I think what was done by the county. Then why are we even in a 50-year renourishment project program with the federal government? Why are we changing these setbacks when we're going to have that renourishment for the next 50 years? Additionally, who are they? You know, it's like, it almost turns, the people who are complaining about this renourishment and the setbacks and everything else are the ones that are not there. Well, I can complain on my side and say that we have no stormwater on our street.
Mr. Booth, the buzz rang. If you would go ahead and finish up, I'll let you continue.
This is a special matter, Mr.
Right, and I
Mayor.
said I would let you, if you hurry up, finish, I'll let you finish. It was the 3 minutes. That's the council rules. This is the first reading. You're more welcome to come back or finish up here. I'll give you another 30 seconds to finish if you would like.
There is more to this intent, and there's been variances granted throughout the areas, and nobody's really asked of any money from the city to rebuild. It's all insurance-driven, and it's all personal monies-driven. And I hear safety and everything else. There's something else going on here that I don't agree with, and I'm going to find that out. Thank you.
Sir, very much. Podium still open? John?
John Fergus, 135 Maple. First of all, on the change to mention hurricane, the largest erosion event since this city was formed was not a hurricane. It was the Thanksgiving weekend storm in '85. So I wouldn't use hurricane, I'd say erosion event or something like that. That's what Northeaster is, what that was. But it wasn't just
We have erosion.
slow. Okay, well.
I didn't take that out.
No, we didn't take
Erosion's
out the
still
word
in there.
erosion.
Erosion, sea level rise, and/or hurricanes.
Okay, just so There's erosion, which is slow and just keeps going. And then there's the event. In that case at Magellan, we lost 100 feet in one event. The other thing in mentioning about how many houses may have a problem, the one house that always comes to mind is on Shell Street. Turns out when it was in foreclosure and the bank owned it, the bank got a letter from the city that said, on notice, if this building has to be rebuilt, it may not get a permit. So when those people bought it from the bank, either the bank erred in not telling them, or they got notice and they don't know. That should absolve the city. They were on notice. Okay? And having seen what happened in front of the planning board, seeing what's going on here, it might be a good idea to have an attorney that can talk some of the law here. St. Johns County spent almost $1 million in legal fees defending themselves after they issued permits to build in an area that eventually eroded.
Thanks, John. Floor is still open.
Good evening, Council. You haven't seen me in a while. Dale Abrams, Satellite Beach. I have been here for 20 years now. I can't believe it. It's just flown by. And I look at that ocean every day. I look at the beach. I look at the sand. I'm really happy with Mike McGarry and the project. I talked to him and Mary Moody and the COs. They've all done a great job. And I've actually had to go out there and ask people not to sit on the COs at the toe of the dune, okay? This is part of my retirement. So I hope going forward, we're going to do the right thing, because I think there's a lot of people out there, it's part of their retirement too. So, you know, please think about that going forward, okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Dale, do you guys have a survey of your property?
I don't have it, but it's in storage. It's in storage.
Oh, really? Because we would be interested in looking at yours, particularly because of your front setback. Is that something y'all could help us out with? To see how bad it impacts you?
We'll get that.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll get that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Floor is still open for public comment. Here's no further comment. Bring back to council further council comments.
You know, I think if you really look at what's being proposed here, and you look at a scenario where there's devastation that takes out 50 to 70% of a home, rebuilding in this manner that's being suggested is probably going to be something that insurance companies are going to look at to reinsure your property. It's going to make it much more conducive for them to issue an insurance policy when you're retreating back versus staying on the same footprint. So, you know, I think from what I'm seeing here, everything that we're being proposed to look at is going to be beneficial to the majority of the homeowners along the ocean, because I understand exactly what Dale said, as this is your retirement. You know, we want to be able to make sure that you're going to be able to do something with that property, and you're going to be able to get insurance, because people that, as John talked about, the house there that the bank sold, to rebuild on that piece of property, you may be able to build, but you might not be able to get insurance on it. So we're trying to tie all of this together so that when you have this type of devastation, you're going to be able to go get something done, and it's going to be able to be insured, and you're going to be able to build back on these properties, because that's what we're looking at. We want our residents to be able to stay where they are.
I just had 2 points real quick. if you don't mind. The other item is that, even though we're getting the Mid-Reach project and we have a 50-year agreement to do the renourishment, across the state of Florida, we're having a lot of trouble finding sand now. And South Florida is actually trying to get the law changed so they can import sand from Bahamas. So that's one of the considerations why we actually passed a resolution with Surfrider Foundation to ask the state of Florida to create a coastal retreat fund for us, and for the whole state, because that's some of the, in really highly eroding areas, that's some of the things that we have to start looking at, because, you know, if we are continuing to renourish or, you know, basically putting all of our eggs in that basket, basically, we're counting on sand that may not be there. The other thing is, when we look at property values, you want to keep a natural dune. I mean, once you put seawalls in, that's when your property values start to fall. And so, you know, that's kind of critical, and that's kind of that's basically what we're trying to protect, is creating that natural dune system. So those are the things that we're thinking about, and we want to make sure that we're reducing the impacts on the property owners, which is why we are trying to move the setbacks. You know, that's really primarily the only reason why we were doing that, is to try to protect the property rights of the property owners.
And really, this only comes into play when a number is reached. If they don't reach 50 or whatever that number is,
right,
then this doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
It stays right where the house is. They make the repairs to where it's at. This only comes when there's enough of a disaster that causes whatever that percent is to go away of the house.
Right.
And you might not be able to build on the other one anyway, because it's not there any longer. The land isn't. So I think this gives us, and gives the homeowners the flexibility to move it where there is property to build.
Right.
And they can build up and at least still have value in their property. Steve, anything?
Yeah, just the only thing I would say is, you know, when we talk about that 50% or whatever that number may be, there's two parts to that. I mean, obviously, if it's a hurricane event and it's a wind event, you know, you could flatten the whole house and have 75% damage of wind and not have very little erosion, which is certainly different than the flip side of that is you may not have a big wind event, but you sure may have enough erosion that it takes out 3/4 of the house. And I think realistically, if it takes out half, 3/4 of the house because of an erosion event, you're right, there's not going to be any place to put a house back on. There won't be no land to put the house back on. So I think, like I said, there's just two sides that you have to look at. Again, if it's a wind event and you cause that much damage, it may be not because of erosion. That property may still be there.
And that's why we wanted to make sure that we clarified that, you know.
I mean, yeah, because I think really what we're talking about is the erosion
Right.
part of the event. Either the land is there to build on or it's not.
Right.
As opposed to, again, maybe just a house that blows over. Is totally different from that perspective.
Any further questions from council? At this point, do I have a motion? John?
Yeah, just food for thought. This is outside of the ordinance, what we're dealing with, but it's something that the public ought to be aware of. I just spent a week at the National Flood Insurance Conference, and they were really pushing hard for us to get the message out to the public that for you to get covered under flood insurance, it's called substantial damage, substantial improvement. So in other words, if you just improve your house, and it doesn't have to be necessarily from erosion, it could be from any event, or you just want to remodel your house. 50% of the value of the structure, not the land, of the structure, is a tipping point where you either have to bring in compliance, and you put it on grade beams and piles, moving it more landward often solves that problem. So again, this really helps them maintain their flood insurance if we can help them comply in other ways, because it gets very expensive when you have to go down their path.
Okay, thank you. Motion?
Is the motion to
The
accept
motion
this
is for
proposed
ordinance 1159.
I don't think we're doing 1159, are we?
Yes.
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 Did
Yeah,
you
that's
read
the
ordinance?
Yeah, we read
Did
ordinance
Jim read
11.
it?
Yes, he did.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. All right, I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 1159. on
I have a
first reading.
motion by Vice Mayor Montanaro,
With the language that was brought tonight, incorporating those changes.
thank you. I have a motion by Vice Mayor Montanaro.
Second.
I have a second by Councilman Osmer. Further discussion on council? Hearing no further discussion. Lenore?
Councilman Gibson,
Yes.
Councilman Osmer,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Montanaro,
Yes.
Mayor Patino.
Yes. Motion passes. That was the first reading. We will have the second reading on it. Thank you. This time, move on to agenda item 8. Discuss, take action on award of request for bid for DeSoto Park Stormwater Facility. Alan?
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
This project has been a long time coming. We started working on this, 3 years ago. Finally, on February 22nd, we put out an RFB and received bids on March 22nd, receiving 3 bids for the DeSoto stormwater project. The lowest being Massey Corporation for $911,050. And with that, we have David King's letter of recommendation of the award to Massey Corporation for $911.50. The funding will be through a 319 grant with the city match of 41%, and the TMDL grant, which we were awarded matching a 50/50 matching grant of $285,000, which we will pay $142,500 of. We are also pursuing other grant opportunities, but we haven't heard anything of those yet, so we did not include those numbers in the calculations.
Thank you. Courtney, you have anything to add? What are we anticipating moving dirt there?
Upon approval, hopefully by June.
And the length of the project?
I think it was a 180-day, 6-month project.
Is there anything in there that will slow this project? I mean, whether we have anything contingent in the permitting?
The only thing is if we had a cold snap, we had manatees moving to the canal, that would put a quick stop to the project. I don't foresee that happening, although the weather's been really squirrely. I get up yesterday morning, I had to put a sweater on, that was pretty tough.
So basically, we'll be getting done before, hopefully, the winter season.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Any questions from?
We've worked with Massey before, right?
Yes, we have. Massey.
They've done.
They did
work
Roosevelt for us, they did the Cassie Phase 3 and the North Drainage Project. They are currently working on A1A. Hopefully that crew won't be moving over here because they're moving a little slow for my taste.
We don't want the A1A crew on the DeSoto.
No, we don't.
Okay, well, I knew we had past experience with them, and I knew they've done good work for us. I just wanted to get that out on the record that,
We've had
done
some
working with them.
issues with them that we've ironed out in the past. The last project they did, though, the Roosevelt project, went very smoothly. They did a really good job. I think they were put on notice by certain individuals that sit up at the dais. I won't mention any names.
Bert's going to be in charge of this project, is that?
I'm sorry?
No.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the award of request for bids number 17-8, or 17/1802 DeSoto Park Stormwater Facility.
Second. But I do have a quick question.
Wait. First, we have a motion by Vice Mayor Montanaro, second by Councilman Gibson on this. Okay, now, questions from council?
One question. So if I'm right, that was $950,000 from the 319 grant. If you add the TMDL grant, that comes out to about $1,235,000 total. And this comes out to, the bid is $911,000. Does that sound right so far?
Well, the way it works is, we anticipated it being a $950,000 project.
Right.
The bid came in lower, so they're going to base their percentage on that lower number.
Okay.
So we're not going to make any money on this deal for sure. So.
Well, we're covered.
Right, so
Yeah.
my next question was just going to be that, so what we listed in here, all the stuff that we're talking about, the parking lot, sidewalk, kayak launch, all that stuff that's listed here, that's all going to get done for that $911,000?
That can't be included. Those are amenities that will be in the park. Those amenities will not be covered by the 319. The DEP will not pay for those type of amenities. That's why we're seeking outside financial help, fine grants, FERDAP grants, grants, things like that, that will assist in those areas of the project.
So for the 911, what all is coming with that?
We'll get the control structures, we'll get the pipe, we'll get the pond, we will get a fountain included in that. We will not get lights. The lights won't be included in that. That was an additive alternate that we included into the bid. We'll look at that further down the line, depending on how successful we are with getting other funding. So if we can, get a couple grants, save some money on other things, then we can move forward with the lighting.
Question on the lights real quick. It was brought up. Will we have the wire and everything in place? I mean, what can be, we don't want to go back and have to redo things and take time.
We want to go solar. Our idea is to move everything in a solar direction down at the park. We're hoping to have some kiosks down there, informational kiosks that will be, solar powered and things like that. So bring attention to our sustainability awareness in the city.
Okay, so now a couple more questions built up. So the first question I had, which kind of piggybacks onto him. So right now, estimate our contribution to this would be around 500,000. Is that what we're looking at? If I add up what our city match, the 389 and the 142, it ends up being like 500 and some thousand. That seem about right?
Right.
Now, okay. And the other question now is that, so when we originally estimated this at the 950, that was an estimation with everything, am I right? With the lights and the park and the pathway and all of that? No. Okay, so that was always just going to be the, okay, good.
Right.
So do we have kind of an idea of if we had to pay out of pocket, what it would cost to add all that stuff in, or do we probably don't know at this point?
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't, I just added it up, okay.
I don't think.
So that it's the additive.
The additive is just the solar lighting.
Oh, yeah.
And that was,
Okay.
the kayak launch and the walkway is in this, but the kayak launch is not, and I'm trying to think what a lot of that stuff we were going to do in kind, we would do ourselves, like building the kiosks and things like that. So there wouldn't be a lot of out of pocket, because we're doing it ourselves, so.
Most of the cost for the the non-stormwater stuff is the pavement, the walkway and the parking.
I just want to make sure that it's
I
something
think
that's
that's,
feasible for us, because we really promoted this park setting, and I would really hate for us.
Oh, we're doing the park.
Okay, good. All right, I just want to go on the record to say,
No,
I can't.
I think we're headed in the right direction.
With
I
the park
think-
happening, so.
Yeah,
We
I
have
think
that
it's going to
funded.
work out.
Yeah, we just don't want to, we'd rather
If
get
we
other
have to.
people's money.
But, right, and these grants are for a specific
Correct.
purpose.
Right.
So you've matched there. They're not interested in kayak launch, and they're interested in
Right.
PMLDs and.
Right.
Have we talked to Jerry Sansom about the kayak launch? Because that's a perfect fine problem, project. I
Yeah.
mean, he would, he's looking for projects to come. Now's the
Yeah, we've
time to get
discussed
them
that.
going.
We've talked to them.
Okay.
The only reason that we haven't gone out in that direction so far is because we struggled with DEP, with the Army Corps, with every agency in the state that had anything to do with manatees.
Oh, I know.
So, we pulled that kayak launch so that we could get a permit. Now we've resubmitted with the kayak launch in it so that we can move forward with the project.
We just want to throw that, Alan, it's just your track record with manatees is not real well, so there's probably something to that. Just saying.
Had to go there, didn't you?
I mean,
And every staff meeting,
Let me open this up for.
every day, it's like, you hear a Seinfeldism, so every day, so I hear manatees. Every day.
All right, at this time, open up agenda item 8 for public comment. Hearing none, back to council. I have a motion. Any further? Lenore?
Councilman Osmer?
Yes.
Councilwoman Gibson?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Montanaro?
Yes.
Mayor Patino?
Yes, motion passes. Thanks, staff.
Thank you all. Thank you. You made my day. I hadn't heard manatee today.
You'll probably be hearing that when you retire too, Alan. They'll probably be
Shake his head
going
like,
We're moving on to agenda item 9, discuss take action on amending the interlocal agreement with Brevard County, the city of Satellite Beach, and the Community Redevelopment Agency. Courtney?
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, the CRA approved the interlocal agreement with the county. It's supposed to be signed by the mayor, so we thought we'd cover all bases and have it come to the city council for approval. It's the same interlocal agreement that the CRA approved last meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you. A motion?
Yes.
I have a motion by Councilwoman Gibson. Second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Osmer. At this time, open up for public comment on agenda item 9. Hearing no further comment, back to council. Any council further comments?
Hey, Alan.
Lenore?
Vice Mayor Montanaro?
Yes.
Councilman Osmer?
Yes.
Councilwoman Gibson?
Yes.
Mayor Patino?
Yes, motion passes. Thank you. Agenda item 10 is the proposed regular meeting for May 2nd, so please take a look at it. If there's anything else you need there, please let us know. Moving on to agenda item 11, approval of minutes.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from the April 3rd workshop and the minutes from the April 4th regular meeting.
Thank you.
Second.
I have a motion by Vice Mayor Montanaro, second by Councilman Osmer. Discussion? Lenore?
Councilwoman Gibson?
Yes.
Councilman Osmer?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Montanaro?
Yes.
Mayor Patino?
Yes.
Mayor, real quick, I just have one little thing.
I had one little thing, but
Um,
I'll let you go first.
The new joke now is we are purchasing recycling bins for the beach accesses.
Okay.
And it took so long for Alan to decide on the design that I told him that when they get here, we're going to have a ribbon cutting.
All right. So,
Are we really going to
two
show up
things.
for that?
Have a ribbon cutting for these recycling bins.
Two things. Tomorrow is the employee luncheon.
Yes.
11:30, not 11, I was told.
11:30? Okay.
Correct. I know, and the other issue, I guess everybody has known, we got our principal.
Yes.
Satellite High School.
Did they announce it?
Bobby Pruitt.
Got it,
It is
Bobby
Bobby
Pruitt. Yep.
I knew it. Tina would not.
I think that's,
Oh,
actually, he pulled me aside 3 weeks ago and said, you got your man. Don't say anything. So, boy, it's been hard for me to not say it
We have
because
been very lobbying.
Bobby
for this.
Pruitt will be the principal at Satellite, which I think is great.
What's going on at Delora then?
I'm not sure. They have a meeting there coming up next week for community and stuff, and I think that's input to see what the community likes, and I think that's how they're matching now. So Bobby got matched with us. I couldn't be happier. I think it's
he's
going to
great.
be really great. So, anyway, any further business?
I was just going to say, since we're going to, the request has come out for us to donate money for the new Save the Lagoon signs, and isn't it going to be a manatee sign? We can get a bunch of
That's the
Please
sign
make
that
sure
we're-
Alan gets a signed copy.
We'll make sure Alan gets the sign.
Yeah.
Actually, can I just say
Anyone?
one last thing?
He wants to
They
get
are
it.
looking still for donations. The Satellite Beach Women's Club has funded
I'm gonna-
most of the signs. It's $1,500 to print the signs, and I believe that Dee Anderson has collected pretty close to $1,000.
Wow.
So if anyone wants to make a donation, please let me know, because I need to get the checks to Mike by Friday. I'm going to be delivering checks.
All right. Yeah, okay, everybody. Any further? Hearing none, meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for coming.